I stood there, frozen in the dark, as Lena stared at that drawing. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. Something wasn't right. She was so still, almost like a statue. I was scared, but I didn't want to show it. "Lena?" I whispered again. My voice felt too quiet. I wanted her to look at me, to blink, to say something, but she didn't move. The silence grew heavy, suffocating me. Slowly, I stepped closer. The light from the street outside flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. I glanced down at the drawing she was tracing. My fear morphed into confusion. "What do you mean they have to be finished?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers moved over the paper. I could see the lines of my figure on the page, my distorted face captured in that dark, twisted artwork. "Why are you doing this?" I said, my voice a bit louder. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were wide and empty, like they were missing something. "You don't understand," she said. Her voice chilled me. "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "There are things that need to happen," she whispered. "Things that are already in motion." I shook my head. This was not the Lena I knew. It was too far from the vibrant artist who painted with colors that burned like fire. "What do you mean?" I asked again. "Are you okay?" She stood up slowly, her gaze still locked on me. "I can feel them." "Feel who?" I took a step back. "The shadows," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "They come through in the drawings. They have to be finished." I wanted to run. I turned to leave, wanting the safety of the hallway, wanting to escape her apartment. But a rustling sound made me stop. I caught sight of the walls, covered with her other paintings. I realized the things in those pieces weren't just abstract shapes anymore. They felt alive. "Jake," Lena's voice cut through my thoughts. She crossed the space between us in an instant. "Stop," I said, surprised by the fear in my own voice. "You're scaring me." "Why?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "You know me, don't you?" I stammered. I wanted to say yes, but it felt like I didn't know her at all. There was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "You should believe me," she said softly. "It's important." Her words sank deep. I didn't know what to say. The room felt smaller. The drawings made me uncomfortable, like they were watching me. I needed to get out. "I'm going home," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't stay here." "Don't you see?" she interrupted, desperation creeping into her voice. "You can't leave. It won't let you." A chill ran down my spine. I backed away, glancing over my shoulder toward the door. "What do you mean? What won't let me?" The air shifted. I could feel something cold and heavy lurking. It felt like shadows were creeping in, wrapping around me. "Lena!" I shouted, but it was too late. The drawing in her hand glowed faintly. "Help me finish it," she said, her voice dark and haunting. I turned and bolted for the door, the weight of her words pulling me back. I didn't look back. I stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. I felt the apartment close behind me, like a dark hole swallowing light. I heard her call my name, but I didn't stop. I just kept running deeper into the night. I sprinted down the hallway, the wooden floorboards creaking beneath my feet. I could still hear Lena's voice echoing in my mind, a haunting plea I couldn't shake off. I burst through the front door into the street, the crisp night air biting against my skin. My heart raced, and I tried to collect my thoughts. I needed to call someone, anyone, but my fingers trembled too much to unlock my phone. Instead, I turned, looking down the block, where faint streetlight fought against the encroaching darkness. Then I remembered. Lena had mentioned needing to finish the drawings. I had to understand. Why was she acting this way? Anxiety clawed at my chest, pulling me back towards her apartment. What if she was in danger? I couldn't just abandon her. Taking a deep breath, I set off in the opposite direction, deciding to put distance between us until the panic subsided. As I walked, the images of her drawings danced in my mind. Distorted shapes with eyes watching me, shadows twisting and turning. What was she tapping into? I glanced toward the park where we used to hang out. The familiar path felt different, drenched in an unnerving ambiance. I couldn't shake the images of those horrifying sentient figures from my thoughts. They felt too close, too real. That's when I saw it, a piece of paper fluttering in the wind near a bench. My curiosity outweighed my fear. I approached cautiously. As I bent down to pick it up, I realized it wasn't just any paper. It was one of Lena's drawings. My hands felt clammy as I unfolded it. The lines twisted into shapes that mirrored those from her apartment. The figure at the center looked directly at me, mouth gaping in a silent scream. I let out a shaky breath, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fumbled to answer, relieved to see it was a text from Lena. It read, "You shouldn't have left." An icy wave of dread washed over me. I looked up, my heart thumping harder than before. I scanned the area, half expecting to see her standing there, but nothing moved. Just silence, wrapping around me like a blanket. I stepped back, the drawing slipping from my fingers. A soft rustle made me turn. There, on the edge of the park, I saw a shadow moving. It was tall and twisted, shifting with an unnatural grace. Something primal kicked in. I felt the instinct to run, but my legs wouldn't move. "Jake," a voice called, sweet and haunting. Too familiar, yet laced with something sinister. I squinted, and the shadow transformed, taking on Lena's form. But something was off. Her hair hung like tendrils, and her eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity. "You came back," she said, and I could see it wasn't just her voice. It echoed, layered with other tones, making it feel wrong. I staggered back. "Lena, what happened to you?" "Help me finish it, Jake," she said, her smile stretching unnaturally wide. Then everything went dark. The streetlights flickered, that cold weight descending upon me once more. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering into an abyss. My heart raced, echoing the words I couldn't escape. "Help me finish it." But I didn't know how. Before I could react, the darkness lunged, and I was swallowed whole. I gasped, as if surfacing from a deep dive into icy water. The darkness receded, revealing the park bathed in moonlight. I lay on the ground, the cool grass tickling my skin. For a moment, I was back to normal, but my heart pounded, and that feeling of dread lingered, whispering in the back of my mind. I sat up, scanning my surroundings. The park felt different now. The usual sounds of crickets were muffled, and the air had an unsettling stillness. I felt like I was being watched. My eyes darted around, searching for Lena. Was it really her I'd seen? I struggled to collect my thoughts. "Help me finish it." The words replayed in my head like a broken record. What did she mean? What was I even supposed to finish? I shook my head, trying to dispel the confusion. "Get a grip, Jake," I muttered to myself. I needed to figure out what was happening. It wasn't just Lena's behavior. The things I saw in those drawings haunted me. They seemed alive, as if they were trying to tell me something. Pushing myself to my feet, I made my way towards the street. My heart raced with every step. I didn't want to return to her apartment, but I felt compelled to. I couldn't shake the thought that something more sinister was at work. As I turned the corner, I spotted a flickering light coming from an alley. My instinct screamed against it, but I needed answers. I approached cautiously, each step heavier than the last. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing me in. I rounded the edge, and there, amidst the trash and shadows, stood a large canvas. It leaned against the brick wall, illuminated by a single flickering bulb. My breath caught. The painting was grotesque, a chaotic mix of twisted shapes and faces, each one eerily familiar. They were the characters from Lena's drawings, the same distorted figures with wide-open mouths.
and hollow eyes. I stepped closer, feeling drawn to it. In the bottom corner, I noticed a signature, Lena. It sent chills down my spine. It didn't just look like her work. It felt like a piece of her soul was trapped in that chaos. But why would she paint this? A sudden noise behind me made me jump. I turned, expecting to see someone lurking, but it was just a trash can tipping over with the wind. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. I needed to find Lena. As I turned back to the painting, my phone buzzed again. It was another text from her. "You need to see it." I glanced around, heart pounding. "See what?" I said aloud, desperation creeping into my voice. Something in the shadows shifted. I felt the air grow heavier, as if it were alive with anticipation. Before I could make sense of it, a figure emerged from the darkness. Her. Lena stepped from the shadows, her eyes wide and wild, but the flickering light behind her cast everything in an eerie glow. "Jake," she said, looping her fingers through her tangled hair. "You should have come back sooner. I've made some real progress." I took a step back. "Progress? What progress? Lena, what's happening?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's all part of the plan. We're almost there." The air around me felt charged. I tried to figure out my next move, but before I could, the drawing began to pulsate, and I could hear them. The whispers. Hundreds of voices weaving through the night, calling out to me, promising to reveal secrets. I watched in horror as the shadows lengthened, distorting Lena's figure, melding her with the night. I felt my body freeze. I had to get away, but I was rooted to the spot, ensnared in the unfolding chaos. Then I realized it wasn't just going to be about finding Lena. It was about surviving whatever she had unleashed. I stumbled backward, desperate to break free from the strange pull of Lena's figure. The whispers morphed into a cacophony, each voice clamoring for attention, begging to be heard. I felt my chest tighten. Fear coursed through me, nearly paralyzing. "Lena," I shouted, trying to catch her attention. "What's going on? What have you done?" Her expression shifted, a flicker of something dark crossing her face. "You don't understand," she said, her voice low, as if sharing a secret. "They want to be free, Jake. We need to finish this. Together." "Finish what?" I pleaded, unable to grasp the meaning behind her words. The painting glowed brighter, the figures writhing, as if they were trying to break out of their canvas prison. Before she could respond, the light suddenly went out, plunging us into darkness. My pulse quickened. I fumbled around for my phone, desperate for a source of light. The whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. With shaking hands, I turned on the flashlight. The beam
cut through the shadows, illuminating the alley, and then something caught my eye. A figure stood a few feet away, half hidden in the darkness. It wasn't Lena. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling. Slowly, the figure stepped forward, revealing a man with gaunt features and wide, unblinking eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a hushed tone. "You'll never get her back." "Get who back?" My heart raced. He pointed to Lena, who stood unnaturally still, her eyes vacant. "She's lost, man. You need to leave before it's too late." I glanced at Lena, then back to the stranger. "What do you mean lost? What have you done to her?" "She's gone deeper than you realize," the man warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "Soon, you won't even remember who she is." Suddenly, Lena moved, her head tilting slightly to the side, as if hearing something that I couldn't. "Jake, let's go," she said, her voice almost melodic, but there was an undertone of urgency. "No," I yelled, sensing the change in her tone. "No more running. You need to tell me what's happening." The man's expression shifted, fear flickering across his face. "You're playing a dangerous game, both of you. With each moment you waste, you edge closer to losing everything." I felt the walls closing in around me. Panic flooded my veins. "What do I do?" "Find the heart of the drawing," he said urgently. "It's the only way." Before I could respond, he vanished into the shadows, as if he were never there. My heart hammered against my ribcage. I turned back to Lena, who was now backing away, her eyes wide with something that looked like terror. I had to act fast. "Lena!" I shouted, chasing after her as she disappeared into the depths of the alley. "Wait!" Then everything went dark again. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me. My heart sank. I'd lost her. But how? And why was I filled with a helplessness I didn't understand? I could feel the chaos closing in. I couldn't afford to lose myself to whatever this was. I needed to understand the heart of the drawing, and fast. I had to find her before it was too late. The darkness enveloped me like a heavy fog. I strained my ears, listening to the whispers that danced along the edges of my mind. Each voice seemed to pull me in a different direction. I tried to focus. I had to find Lena. But how? "Lena!" I shouted again, though I felt foolish yelling into the void. My voice echoed back at me, as if mocking my helplessness. I took a deep breath and focused on the sound of the whispers. Maybe they would guide me. With the flashlight still in my hand, I moved cautiously through the alley. The beam flickered as I walked, illuminating trash bags and graffiti-covered walls. Nothing felt familiar anymore. It was as if the city had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows. Then, something shifted in the air. A chill ran down my spine, and I turned abruptly. There, flickering under my light, was the glowing edge of the painting, the very one I had seen earlier. It lay against the ground, partially hidden behind a pile of debris. I approached cautiously, my heart racing. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath. The painting pulsated, colorful figures twisting and rotating in a grotesque dance. I reached out to touch it. My fingers hovered just above the surface, but I hesitated. Lena had mentioned finishing something. What if I was making a mistake? As if echoing my thoughts, the painting glowed brighter. I could see faces now, distorted and sorrowful, pleading for help. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaky. Suddenly, a surge of energy crackled through the air around me. The whispers intensified, mingling with a sound that felt like a chant. The fear rose in my throat, but I couldn't pull away. Something was forcing me to stay. "Jake!" My heart nearly stopped hearing her voice, weak but clear. I turned around, and there she was, standing at the far end of the alley. Her eyes were wild, pleading. "Lena! Thank God!" I screamed, almost stumbling with relief. But as I rushed towards her, she stretched out her hand, and I could see that it was shaking. "Don't come any closer," she shouted. The urgency in her voice chilled me. "What do you mean? We need to get out of here." I took another step, desperate to reach her and bring her back to safety. "Listen to me, Jake. You don't understand." She pressed her palms against her temples, her face twisted in pain. "I can't leave yet. I have to finish it." "Finish what? You're scaring me." But she only shook her head. "The drawing, it holds something inside. If I don't finish it, they'll never be free. I can't let that happen." The sense of dread crushed me. "You can't do this alone. You're not alone, Lena." For a moment, her resolve faltered, and she stared back at me, as if seeing me for the first time. "Jake." That's when I saw it. The painting, glowing brighter than ever, was beneath her feet. It seemed to pulse as if it was alive. I understood then. This was it. The heart of the drawing was the key to everything. "Lena, we need to work together. We can finish this, please." But just as I spoke, the shadows moved, clawing their way toward her. She gasped, her face twisting in fear again. I reached out, but the whispers grew into a deafening roar. Then the darkness enveloped her once more, and the last thing I saw was her terrified expression before everything went black. "Lena," I screamed, the emptiness swallowing my voice. I had to find her again, before it was too late. I stumbled through the abyss, my heart racing as panic bubbled inside me. The shadows felt alive, pressed closer with each breath I took. I couldn't let Lena disappear again. She needed me. I fumbled with the flashlight, the beam flickering as if it were as scared as I was. I thought back to that painting. It was no ordinary artwork. It was a gateway, a way to reach Lena. The glow still lingered in my mind, It pulsed in time with my heartbeat, a reminder of a growing danger I could barely comprehend. "Lena!" I yelled again, my voice barely cutting through the thick darkness. The whirring whispers answered, swirling around me like a gust of wind. They beckoned me deeper into the alley. I felt drawn to the location where I found the painting. I pushed past a rusted dumpster, clinging to the hope that I could summon its power. When I got to the spot, I froze. The painting was gone. Where did it go? I breathed, scanning the area. My fingers trailed along the jagged brick walls. The air was electric, thick with an insistent energy. That's when I noticed it. A piece of fabric caught on a nail. Bright yellow, just like Lena's favorite hoodie. I grabbed it, desperate and sick to my stomach. "No, no, no," I muttered, recalling the shadows wrapping around her. "Not this." Then something caught my eye on the ground. A scrap of paper. I rushed over, the beam of my flashlight falling on it. Scrawled in bold letters was a word I recognized. Shelter. My heart sank. The word wasn't just a clue. It was a cry for help, a warning. Shelter? Was it a place? A code? I had no time to think. I had to keep moving. I needed answers. I turned my back, hoping to retrace my steps, when I heard it, a rustling in the darkness. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. I turned, peering into the shadows. "Who's there?" I called, fear clawing at my throat. For a moment, the darkness seemed to breathe, pulling in, tight, then releasing. A figure emerged. Not Lena, but someone else. A man, his eyes gleamed in the faint light from my flashlight. "You're searching for her," he said, his voice gravelly like the stones beneath our feet. "You shouldn't be here." I took a step back. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, shadows dancing around him. "She's in danger. The drawing is not what you think." "What are you talking about?" My frustration bubbled over. "I don't have time for riddles. Where is she?" He hesitated, glancing nervously around before leaning closer. "There's a price for finishing it. One you may not be willing to pay." "Just tell me where Lena is." My voice broke. "I can't lose her." In response, the man pointed toward the end of the alley, where a flicker of light peeked between the buildings. "If you're brave enough," he said, his tone laced with urgency, "go. But remember, some drawings can trap the soul." I felt the weight of his words as I took a cautious step forward, fear clutching my gut. But love pushed me. I had to find Lena. I dashed through the alley, ignoring the man's warning, the distant light flickering like a heartbeat urging me on. Whatever lay ahead would determine our fate, and the future hung in the balance. I rounded the corner, heart pounding like a drum against my chest. The light up ahead was getting brighter, pulsing rhythmically as I drew closer. Each step felt heavier, like I was moving through molasses. The alley opened up into a small courtyard littered with empty crates and forgotten graffiti. But the light wasn't just any source. It emanated from a massive mural that covered an entire wall. I gasped as I took in the details. It was an intricate piece, full of twisted faces and surreal landscapes. But at the center stood a figure, a woman with bright yellow hair, and I knew instantly it was Lena. "Lena!" I shouted, stepping toward the mural, but the air grew thick, almost suffocating. A shiver ran down my spine. This was no ordinary piece of art. The colors were vibrant, yet almost alive, like they were swirling, shifting before my eyes. There was something undeniably unsettling about it, yet I felt a pull, a connection. I raised the flashlight, illuminating the figure. That's when I noticed it, that the eyes of the painted woman seemed to follow me. My chest tightened. "Lena!" I cried again, waiting for a response. But the only thing that answered was the murmur of the wind, whispering old secrets. With trembling hands, I reached out to touch the mural. It felt warm, almost as if it were breathing under my fingers. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my head. I staggered back, gasping as memories flooded my mind. Moments I thought I'd lost forever. Laughter, shared secrets, and then shadows. Dark figures lurking in the background, whispers swirling around us like a storm. "Stop it! Where are you, Lena?" I yelled, clutching my head, feeling as if the mural was reaching into my thoughts. The man's warning echoed in my head. Some drawings can trap the soul. Was this place dangerous? Just then, a figure stepped out from the shadows of the courtyard. It was the man again. He looked more frantic now, eyes wide with urgency. "You have to leave. It's here." "Here? What do you mean? I can't leave without." "It wants her." He pointed at the mural. "It's feeding off your search." Before I could respond, the mural flickered. The painted woman's mouth twisted into a mocking grin. I could almost hear her laughter echoing from the canvas. Panic surged in me. "Lena!" I called again, desperation clawing at my voice. "Please!" The mural shimmered, and for a fleeting moment, the chaos faded. I saw Lena's face again, her mouth moving as if she was trying to say something. But just as quickly, the image warped, the woman's lips curling back into the sinister smile. "Don't look."
"Away!" the man shouted, grabbing my arm. "You must find the heart of this drawing. It's the only way to free her." My breath caught. "The heart? What do you mean?" But before he could answer, the ground trembled and the shadows stretched, encroaching on us. I spotted a faint, pulsing light at the bottom of the mural, the pulsating heartbeat of the drawing. "There!" I yelled, taking a step forward, ignoring the man's warning. "Wait!" he shouted, but I was already lost in the light, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited me. Then everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. Where was I? The weight of the shadows pressed around me, heavy and thick, swallowing any light that dared to intrude. I felt disoriented, as if I had been thrown into a void. "Lena," I whispered, trying to steady my breath. No response, just silence. My heart raced as I reached out, fingers brushing against the rough surface of the mural. It felt cooler now, less alive. I forced myself to focus. I needed to find that light again. Clenching my fists, I shifted forward, trying to push through the darkness. Suddenly, I stumbled over something soft, like fabric. I crouched down, my palms brushing against the ground. It was a piece of clothing, a small, torn sweater. Lena's sweater. A chill skittered up my spine. "Lena!" I yelled fiercely, my voice echoing off the walls of the empty space. Doubt twisted in my stomach. If the mural was feeding off my search, what would it do with my fear? As I swept the beam of my flashlight through the darkness, I caught a glimpse of movement. A shadow darted to the side, almost like something alive. My heart hammered louder. "Who's there?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Stop! You'll attract it!" The man's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. I turned toward him as he stepped out of the shadows, his face tense with urgency. "Listen to me. You must find out how to confront it." "Confront what?" I asked, my anxiety bubbling to the surface. "What is this place?" He took a deep breath, glancing back nervously. "The mural isn't just a drawing. It's a gateway into a realm for the lost. Those who vanish, they are taken into the piece. The more you seek, the more it gains strength." I clenched my jaw. "And Lena? Is she in there?" "Yes, but you have to resist it. The moment you lose focus, it will draw you in. You have to discover the heart, the core of its power." I couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping over me. What did it mean for me to find this heart? What will it take to free her? "Sometimes it demands a sacrifice," he said, eyes shadowed with seriousness, "and we're running out of time." With those words, I felt a tremor beneath my feet, a warning. The mural began to pulse again, the colors swirling like a living entity hungry for me. I had to act now, but the pressure of the darkness felt overwhelming. That's when I saw it, a flicker of the bright light bursting through the thick shadows. It emerged from the empty space behind the mural, pulsating like a beacon.
My instincts screamed at me to move. "Stay close to the light," the man shouted, his voice slicing through the noise. Without a second thought, I sprinted toward it, every ounce of fear pushing me forward. Just as I reached the edge, something cold grasped my ankle, yanking me back into the depths. Panic surged within me. I was being pulled under. I couldn't let go. Not now. Not when I was so close. "Help!" I screamed, feeling the darkness rip away at my resolve as I clawed at the air. But the shadows held on tightly, and my vision began to blur. I had to find that heart, but now it felt like it was slipping away. I felt the pull tighten, relentless and icy, dragging me deeper into the suffocating blackness. The panic clawed at my throat, choking off any hope. I kicked wildly, but it felt futile. The darkness was stronger than I was. "Hold on," the man shouted, urgency slicing through the chaos. I caught a glimpse of him, his outstretched hand barely within my view. In a desperate attempt, I lunged for him. The shadows recoiled, but my movement sent a ripple through the darkness, and I felt the edges shifting around me. "Focus on the light," he urged again. I could barely hear him over the pounding in my chest. Whatever was dragging me seemed to sense my struggle. I felt sharp tendrils curling around my legs, whispering promises in a language I didn't understand. It was trying to distract me, to break my concentration. I could not let it win. With a burst of determination, I dug my fingers into the ground. I concentrated, forcing away the despair. Lena was somewhere in this mess. I couldn't let her down. Yet, as I pulled, another shadow reached out, longer and darker. It was then I remembered the mural, the heart. If I could find it, maybe I could reverse this. I closed my eyes and focused on the light, imagining it growing stronger with every heartbeat. "Lena," I called again, my voice somehow steadying me. Suddenly, the darkness twisted with rage, and the grip on my legs tightened, making it harder to breathe. The man's face reflected my fear, frustration etched deeply in his eyes. "You have to push back. Picture it, the heart of the mural." I thought of the colors I'd seen before, swirling like a raging storm. They danced in my mind, and I forced myself to picture them coalescing into something solid. It had to be there, at the center of this nightmare. That's when I felt it, a flicker of warmth in the depths of the cold. I latched onto it, visualizing it with every ounce of willpower I had left. It sparked like a flame, cutting through the shadows. Everything around me shook. "This is it," I gasped, heart pounding. "I can see it." I opened my eyes, just in time to catch the glimpse of a golden glow in the mural's center. Then chaos erupted. The ground beneath me cracked, and the shadows shrieked, a sound that rattled my bones. The grip on my legs faltered, just for a moment. I took my chance. I pushed off the ground and lunged toward the light, screaming Lena's name one last time. But as I broke free from the darkness, I was met with an unexpected sight. The man's expression had changed. No longer desperate, it was now filled with a strange mix of relief and dread. "We must hurry," he said, glancing back at the shadows that writhed with anger behind us. "What do you mean, we?" I asked, catching my breath as the mural pulsed ominously. He stepped towards me, urgency etched in his features. "The heart, it's not just for her. It requires both of us to unlock it." I didn't understand. "What do you mean? I came to save Lena." "Exactly," he said, and before I could question further, he was pulling me back towards the mural. "What I didn't tell you is the key to it all. It always demands more." And that's when I saw it, the outline of Lena's face flickering within the mural, a tender smile frozen in time. I stumbled back, confusion swirling with dread. What does that mean? What else does it want? Time was slipping away, and I had to know. My breath was ragged as I faced the mural, the pulsating golden light now casting eerie shadows around us. Lena's smile flickered within the depths, the colors swirling like a tempest. I felt something strange pulling at me, urging me forward, yet the man's words echoed in my mind. It always demands more. What does it want, really? I demanded, glancing back at him, desperation coloring my tone. What else? What else does it need? His eyes darkened, mirroring the shadows that danced around us. It feeds on desire and fear, Jake. The more you seek her, the more power it gains. He took a step closer to the mural, pointing at the figures trapped within, their faces contorted with sorrow and longing. We must confront the heart together, but it requires a part of you to free her. A part of me? I repeated, disbelief lacing my voice. What does that mean? I can't just give up pieces of myself. It's the only way to sever the bond it has over you both, he urged, his tone pleading. You must decide. Do you want to save her, or do you want to remain trapped here forever? I felt the weight of his choice pressing down on me. The shadows shrieked, angry and alive, as if sensing the hesitance in my heart. If I didn't act fast, whatever connection I felt to Lena, whatever chance I had to save her, would be gone. Jake, please, the man said, eyes filled with urgency. You have to trust me. To free her, we must forge a bond strong enough to fight the darkness. I closed my eyes, letting the chaos swirl around me. Images of Lena filled my mind, the laughter we'd shared, the moments when the world felt at peace. Was I really willing to sacrifice anything for her? I remembered how I felt helpless watching her slip away into that abyss. I'll do it, I said, opening my eyes to meet his gaze. Let's free her together. He nodded, his expression softening for just a moment. Then, focus on the light, on the bond between you and her. Channel everything you feel, that will be the key. With a deep breath, I stepped toward the mural. The warm golden glow intensified, wrapping around my fingers like a soft embrace. I remembered our moments together, the joy in her smile, the freedom in her laughter. The eyes of the trapped souls within the mural flickered with a different kind of urgency, awakening something deep within me. I reached out to the light, and as I did, the shadows recoiled, howling in anguish. The colors swirled more violently now, the painting distorting, as if responding to the energy that surged between us. Keep going, the man shouted, his voice echoing against the walls. The connection deepened. I felt Lena's presence within me, a soothing warmth fighting against the cold darkness. I could almost hear her voice, urging me forward. Jake, help me. Finish it. Together, I shouted, pulling him closer to the center of that radiant light. The darkness wrapped around us like tendrils, but we stood strong amidst the chaos. As we focused our energy, the heart of the mural flickered, becoming more defined, pulsing at the center of the chaos. It glowed bright like the sun, illuminating every corner of the void we were trapped in. And then I felt it. A wave of strength surged through us, tethering me to both the man and whatever fragments of Lena remained. This connection, I shouted, vines of golden light wrapping around us. It's working. But then the shadows surged forward, desperate to reclaim their hold. The beautiful light flickered, threatening to extinguish. No, the man yelled, panic flooding his features. It needs a sacrifice. You have to give it something. What? What do I give? I called back, dread creeping back into my heart. Something you hold dear, he shouted, urgently, his eyes darting around as shadows clawed at our feet. I knew what they sought, and yet the thought terrified me. Could I really give it up? I felt the intense need to hold on, but I also felt Lena reaching for me from the depths. I closed my eyes again, focusing on her voice, her laughter, and all our shared memories. With every ounce of will, I focused on everything I loved about her, my heart clenching. I envisioned cutting the bond that tied me to that fear, my uncertainty in revealing the truth about my feelings. I'm ready. The moment the words escaped, I felt the ground shift beneath us. A blinding pulse surged from the heart of the mural and enveloped me completely. And then, silence. I opened my eyes and gasped. The mural was gone. I stood in a vast, empty space, illuminated and void of shadows. It felt surreal, and my heart sank as I looked around, desperate for any sign of Lena. "Lena!" I shouted, but there was only silence, echoed by an all-consuming stillness. Where was she? Just then, I felt a familiar warmth wash over me, a whisper of her laughter gently pulling me in a new direction. I turned, and in the distance, I saw it, a figure standing beneath a blossoming tree. As I blinked, the figure stepped forward, illuminated by the soft light surrounding it. My breath caught in my throat. It was Lena. "Jake?" she called softly, a smile breaking upon her face. My heart soared, but confusion took its place. What happened?" I asked, stepping cautiously toward her. "Are you okay? Are you real?" She nodded, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "I'm okay." "Did we do it?" I asked, searching her expression. Her gaze faltered, flickering with something unnameable. "I think we freed them, but some pieces are still missing." The ambiguity of her words hung between us, a tension neither of us could escape. "Missing?" I repeated, confusion making my stomach knot. She glanced away, the light flickering. "Part of me remembers something, but can't connect it all." I swallowed. An unsettling sensation prickled my senses. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the ground beneath us trembled, shadows flickering around the edges of the light. "Jake," Lena said, her voice tinged with fear, "we may have released what was in there, but not all of it." I scanned the horizon, a sense of dread pooling in my gut. We had escaped the darkness, but it felt like we were still bound to it in some way. I felt uneasy as the shadows lingered. We were free, yet something whispered, reminding me that the battle wasn't over. "What do we do?" I asked, as the air grew thick again with uncertainty. As her gaze met mine, I realized we may have won our first skirmish, but the questions remained. What remained in the shadows? And would we ever truly be free from its call? Lena took a deep breath, holding my gaze. "We face it together," she said softly, and something deep inside awakened again. And that, perhaps, was where the journey truly began.